1. The roommate who didn't exist. When I moved into my apartment last year, it was the first time I'd ever lived completely alone. It wasn't much, a small studio in an old building just outside of town, but it felt like freedom. The building itself was weirdly shaped, like someone had just kept adding rooms over the decades without a plan. My landlord, Mr. Hamel, was this older guy who lived in another unit downstairs. He handed me the keys, showed me where the fuse box was, and mentioned that Unit 3A next to mine was still vacant, but occasionally used for storage. About a week in, I started hearing noises through the wall. At first, I thought it was pipes, faint thuds, a dragging sound, and sometimes this soft humming, but it always happened between 2 and 4 a.m., and it never stopped if I banged back. Then came the smell. It wasn't rotting, more like something damp and chemical, the way mold smells after bleach. One night, the humming was so clear that I pressed my ear against the wall, and I could swear I heard whispering, maybe even two voices, in a low rhythmic chant. I told Mr. Hamill about it the next morning. He frowned like he was genuinely confused. He said, "Nobody's in 3A. The last tenant left 3 years ago. It's been empty since." He offered to check it out, but a few hours later, he called me saying the door was jammed shut and the master key didn't fit anymore. That night, I woke up to the sound of my bathroom faucet running. When I went in, the mirror was fogged up, and written across it in the condensation were the words, "Stop moving the furniture." My stomach dropped. I hadn't touched a single piece of furniture since moving in. I grabbed my phone, snapped the photo, but the words had already faded. The next day, I tried to get into 3A myself. The door was swollen and painted shut, but I forced the handle enough to hear the latch click. That's when I heard it again, whispering. But this time, it was on my side of the wall. The sound of bare feet brushing the floor just behind me. I ran back to my apartment and packed my things. When I passed Mr. Hamel, I told him I was moving out immediately. He didn't argue. He just looked relieved. A week later, I got curious and checked the building's public records online. Unit 3A had been sealed by the city 8 years ago after a tenant was found dead inside, sitting perfectly upright, talking to the wall. The coroner ruled it psychotic self-neglect. But what makes me lose sleep now is this. When I looked at the attached file photo, there was writing on the wall behind the body. It said, "Stop moving the furniture." 2. Dead air. I used to work as a late-night operator at a local AM radio station. We were one of those small-town stations that mostly played classic hits, community announcements, and the occasional call-in show. Most nights were boring. I'd take a few requests, check the equipment, and read messages off the fax machine. But one night, around 12:30 a.m., a man called in. His voice was shaky, panicked. He said, "I need an ambulance. There's been a crash. Route 6, near mile marker 14. I immediately patched the line to emergency services, thinking he dialed the wrong number, but he hung up before they connected. Still, I called it in myself. 40 minutes later, a highway patrol officer phoned the station directly. He said, "How'd you know about that accident so fast?" "We just found the wreck." That was odd, but I brushed it off as coincidence. 2 nights later, I got another call. Same panicked tone. Same man. He said, "Please, there's smoke. I can't get the door open." And then the line went dead. I called emergency dispatch again, and once more. The details checked out. A house fire. Same voice. The responding units confirmed a man was found unconscious inside. The same man. But that was impossible. He died at the scene of the first crash. The next night, I came in early and checked the caller ID log. The calls had no originating number. The system marked them as station internal, meaning the call came from inside the building. That night, the phone rang again, but this time, it wasn't the panic, it was whispering. Low, distorted, like the receiver was underwater. The voice said, "Turn around. You've been on the wrong frequency all week." My hand froze. I turned slowly toward the control booth window, and that's when I saw the reflection of someone standing behind me, perfectly still. No movement, no breathing sound, just a silhouette. The next thing I remember is the lights flickering, the transmitter alarm blaring, and me waking up on the floor hours later. The recording from that shift, the audio log, was missing 37 minutes of data. When I asked my boss about it, he said, "We haven't had a live line open at night for years. The system's automated." The station shut down the next month for technical restructuring. But sometimes, when I drive by the tower on Route 6, I tune into our old frequency, and I still hear the static hiss and a man's voice faintly saying, "Please, there's smoke. 3. The woods behind Unit 47. I took a security job last winter at a semi-abandoned distribution depot just outside the city. Most of the warehouses were empty, but a few still had automated lighting and cameras running. My shift was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., completely alone, just watching feeds from 12 cameras. The place was surrounded by chain-link fence and thick woods. On my first night, the supervisor said, "If anything moves near the trees, just log it. Wildlife triggers the motion sensors all the time." For the first few weeks, it was quiet. But then, around mid-February, one camera, Cam 7, facing the tree line behind Unit 47, started glitching every night at 2:17 a.m. sharp. The screen would flicker white, then cut to static for about 3 seconds before coming back. When it returned, the angle always looked slightly different, like the camera had been tilted upward. I checked the mount in the morning. No sign of tampering. That night, when I zoomed in on the playback, I realized something awful. In the brief white flash before the static, there was the faint outline of a face. Pale, eyes open, mouth wide. Every night after that, the same thing. Same timestamp, same flicker, same split-second face. It started appearing closer, each time. Then, on a Friday, Can 7 lit completely black for the entire night. When I checked the motion logs, it showed constant activity, hundreds of triggers. But when not there the next morning, flashlight in hand. The woods behind Unit 47 weren't deep, maybe 50 meters. But halfway in, I found a collapsed fence section and the remnants of what looked like an old access tunnel entrance. The air coming from it was cold, metallic, and smelled like wet stone. When I checked the live feed again from the office, Cam 7 was back online, but this time it was pointed directly at me. And there, on the monitor, standing just behind my shoulder in the feed, was a figure. It looked human, but its skin had that flat gray tone you see on bad night vision footage. I spun around. Nothing. The feed flickered once, then showed the woods again. But now, there was a second camera view on my monitor, one that didn't exist in the system, labeled CAM-13. Inside, the image was pitch black, except for one thing. A glowing, red recording light at the bottom corner of the screen, facing me. I quit that night. But a few days later, my friend who took over my shift texted me a photo. It was a screenshot from the monitor, and it showed me sitting in that chair, staring blankly at CAM-13. The timestamp said, 2:17 a.m., 1 week after I left. If you like stories like these, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. If you want to be featured in one of the upcoming videos, please leave your story in the comments, and we will choose the best ones. Sleep tight.